This is Adam Watson.
And Levon Baker.
You're listening to the Darkslinger Mafia podcast. And as you may be able to tell, I do not have very much of a voice. But it's a lot better than it was even a few hours ago, right?
Very true.
Must be the honey in the tea, I guess. So yesterday was Free Comic Book Day, and we recorded a few interviews that Levon conducted while we were at Cosmic Monkey in Portland, Oregon. We're going to go ahead and play those.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and...
I'm Jacob Mercy. I'm the creator of Barkles, America's favorite dog, along with my associate here.
I'm Pete Soloway, the co-creator of Barkles, America's favorite dog.
Yeah.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit about it and how you guys got into it?
So Barkles actually started out as a one-off gag as part of an ongoing webcomic series that we were doing. But people really responded positively to the character, so we decided to kind of spin him off into his own thing.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah, so we've made 3 different 24-hour comics plus a game jam about Barkles. It's kind of a way that we can fit it into our otherwise crowded lives, and I like the spontaneity of it too. I don't know, do your listeners already know about what a 24-hour comic is?
I wouldn't be positive. This is only the second one that I've done, so if you would want to explain that a little bit?
Sure. It started out as a challenge between Scott McCloud and Steve Bissett to see if you can produce a 24-page comic in a single 24-hour period. And it's now done as an annual event around the world and throughout the year. And so we made the latest one the first weekend in October is the agreed upon date, and it's normally done by a single person. We like to collaborate because I'm lazy, and it's a great way to experiment, explore different ways of making comics that you wouldn't normally do if you had to sink a whole month into it, which is one of the reasons that we ended up doing this.
Very cool. Right.
Yeah, and our latest one is actually a video game, Choose Your Own Adventure comic book, which you can get online for free at barkles.dog/game. And that is, you can play it on mobile or whatever format you like. It's very friendly. So.
Yeah, we made that one during the Global Game Jam, which is a similar event but for game developers. So instead of 24 hours, it's 48 hours, and you're supposed to produce an entire interactive video game.
Holy smokes.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Done a bunch of those too with different collaborators. This is the first time I tried to do one that's also a comic. I think it came out great.
That sounds awesome. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, we're real proud of it.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So I am David Chelsea. I am an Eisner and Harvey nominated cartoonist. I am the author of a classic how-to book on perspective, also 2 follow-ups. And I am the world champion 24-hour comic artist, which means I've done more than anybody else. 18 to date. I've had 2 collections of 24-hour comics out from Dark Horse, and I am appearing in the movie 24-Hour Comics, a documentary directed by Milan Ercik.
Very cool.
Yes. And I've also drawn this other comic, Snow Angel, which is a family-friendly superhero. And I have a Patreon page. I'm serializing a new version of my 1995 graphic novel, Welcome to the Zone, which features a realtor named Ronald Duck. And just now I'm in the planning stages of a sequel in which Ronald Duck is elected president.
That's great.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you got into it.
I got into comics. I was always drawing comics. I actually had a weekly strip in Portland's underground paper in the 1970s.
Really?
Yeah. And I didn't draw comics for like 10 years after I moved to New York, but then I got back into it mostly as a way of getting even with an ex-girlfriend who dumped me. I drew a comic, an autobiographical comic about that failed love affair, and that was the comic that got nominated for Eisners and Harveys. It's called David Chelsea in Love, and I followed that up with Welcome to the Zone, and then I kind of branched out into doing how-to books on perspective.
Very cool.
Yes, and along the way I've done illustration, I've done storyboards, I've done product art, I've done murals, I've done paintings on bowling balls. So I do a little bit of everything.
Very cool. All right. Anything else that you want to say? Or?
Oh gosh. Go Blazers. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.
So you want to just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Jeromy Cox. I make a lot of comic books. I mainly color comic books for DC Comics, but I've worked for every company pretty much. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's fun.
So tell me a little bit about your books.
I started out publishing a book called Zombie Love, which it's about a pumpkin-headed Lord of the Dead.
Okay.
So that was my first comic. I did 6 issues, and in that time I did some video games, and then I got into Photoshop, and then when the image boom happened, I started coloring comics for Jim Lee's company, Wildstorm.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I did like Wildcats and Gen 13 and whatever books they were doing.
Okay.
So I did that, and then I went back to video games, but the entire time coloring comics on the side.
Yeah.
And then from there I've moved to full-time coloring comics, and that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years probably.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with this one?
Vampires is a book that I just was going to put out a single issue. It's about vampire pirates. You know, that's the easy sell of it. But my friend Kevin Ring and I are going to relaunch it. We put up 1 issue on Comixology, and we've got, I think, 6 or 7 to do. So, yeah, I've got a lot of work.
That's awesome.
It's all on me right now. So. And then I have this book called Skink and Skunk, which I put out for kids. It's about the bad animals on Noah's Ark. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, my current books I'm working on are Deathstroke with Christopher Priest. It's a really good book. And then I'm about to do Hong Kong Fooey and Black Lightning.
Nice. Very cool. Where would we be able to find you online?
The best place to look is Twitter or Facebook right now. My regular website, mostfunnest.com, I'm revamping. So, but if you're looking for me, Jeromy Cox, Jeromy, Cox, UX.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
If you just want to tell me a little bit about yourself and then about your books.
My name is Aaron Humphres. I publish children's book and comic books. My children's book is about an alien wildlife photographer named Roscoe, published by Action Lab Comics. And my comic book is a 12-issue series called Goblins, about a bunch of rebellious young gods who don't want to be gods, so they end up causing a rebellion. I'm local. I live in Vancouver, Washington, and I started doing this year, and I've been having a blast. So
Very cool.
yeah. So I'm not sure what else to say, or.
So if you just want to tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, my name is Brian Parker. I am a author and illustrator and publisher now. My wife and I run a youth-oriented publishing company from here in Portland called Believe in Wonder. And you can kind of see some of our stuff at our website at believeinwonder.com. And really our focus is to make creative stories with diverse characters that promotes creativity and imagination. And not only young people, but people that are young at heart.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Very
I mean, yeah, because I love this stuff. You know, I read YA, I read middle reader, even now that I'm a grown-up, quote-unquote grown-up. And it gives me a lot of enjoyment, and it really does activate all of that creativity that you don't necessarily get to activate during the course of your day-to-day life.
Right.
You know? So I think that's important, and I think it's really important now to encourage people to be as open and imaginative as possible, because I think it's through creativity and through a sense of wonder that you open yourself up to possibilities. You know, you kind of have this kind of closing off of people's minds right now everywhere in our culture.
Right.
And making an opportunity for people to be open-minded really does kind of break down boundaries and break down those kind of locked in thinking that you get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I always encourage people to, pick up fiction, read any kind of fiction that they can, because it really does, flip on that switch that you don't get a chance to all the time. Yeah. So, yeah.
How long have you been doing this?
I've been working as a professional illustrator for about 10 years, and a graphic designer. But as far as, kind of ditching working in like a kind of 9 to 5 and then kind of doing this stuff full time, I've been probably since 2015. So, yeah, and it's been awesome. the creative community is always so open to new voices and
Right.
open to the possibility of, kind of different point of views and new kinds of stories and stuff. So we've had a lot of support from folks, and we get to go out to these kind of smaller events, and we've been building up to bigger cons, and we're going to be talking at the Willamette Writers Convention in August, and we're going to be talking about that kind of stuff. We're going to be talking about, how to create diverse world building, and tell stories about characters from a whole different kind of walk of life that you see usually in these kind of mainstream creative stories and fantastic stories and stuff. And it really does have a really strong influence. People have no idea how big an influence it has. I think they're a little bit more open to it now because Black Panther blew up like and it was so beautiful and it was so awesome. But there was a time when the idea of making a movie like Black Panther that was set in such a kind of foreign from a kind of common American way of looking at it environment with characters that aren't coming from an American point of view was just impossible to imagine.
Right.
And people were kind of the mind that kind of thing wouldn't sell, that it didn't have a following. And now ideas are changing. People are realizing that there is a hunger for these really diverse stories about people that come from all walks of life and all kinds of backgrounds. It actually inspires the story to go in the directions that you wouldn't actually expect.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've been fortunate that people have kind of seen the kind of work that we're putting out, and they realize that it's that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That level of stuff. So yeah.
Very cool.
It's been awesome. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it too.
So, Levon, how was it conducting your first interviews?
It was a little awkward at first. I think it was the last two that I really felt comfortable.
Okay. That makes sense. The more of them you do.
The next time that I do it, I would like to have some kind of list of questions, even if I don't go off of them.
That's fair.
Just because then I can look down, like, the guy that only talked for about 30 seconds because he didn't know what else to say, then I could have had other things to
ask him. Yeah,
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. We can prepare better questions next time.
Yeah, but I definitely feel like I got a hang of it after the last two.
Okay,
like,
good.
I'm not nervous and shy to do it next time.
This was a very last-minute sort of thing. So while I knew Free Comic Book Day was approaching, and I had been meaning to get a hold of Cosmic Monkeys, that's the place I normally sign on Free Comic Book Day, I just hadn't got around to it. But I was on Facebook less than a week before Free Comic Book Day.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to say it was like the Sunday before, so like 6 days prior. And they had posted something stating that they had space available still for local creators to show up and sign. So I messaged them and said, hey, or I commented on there saying, hey, if you guys have space for me, I'd love to be there. And so with 6 days going in, it's just kind of a fly by the seat of the pants, wing it sort of scenario. So that left you winging the interviews as well. And you haven't been involved with one of the podcasts before where I'm interviewing somebody. So you didn't have that to go on either.
Yeah. It wasn't bad, though. I mean,
no, you did a good job.
It was a little nerve-wracking at first just because I'm weird and don't like going up and being the conversation starter.
Right.
Mostly because I'm afraid that they're not going to want to or they're just going to be rude. But they were all surprisingly really nice and open, and they had no issues doing it.
There was only, two guys who were full-on pros, right?
Right.
Jeromy Cox, who was beside us, he was a full-on pro. And then I believe the gentleman who was directly in front of me, you're going to have to forgive me, I'm not remembering names at the moment. He had quite a few books and was Eisner and Harvey Award nominated. I think it's fair to say that, he's a pro as well. Not that everybody else there isn't a pro. I mean, you publish a comic, you're a pro.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. There are various levels of pros.
Right.
So most of the time, if you meet someone who's still at a lower level, they're always going to be ecstatic to talk about their work in every opportunity because, you might think that people are just overrun with people wanting to interview you for podcasts and things of that nature when you're at conventions or signings. or anything like that, but that's not the case. Even people who do podcasts, there's a limited amount of time they have to go around the con, do interviews with people, and see the con as well. So most comic creators, especially on the still aspiring to get bigger level, are always thrilled to be doing interviews.
That seemed to be the case, at least with the last 3 that I did.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was the last 2. They had no issue with it, and as soon as I walked up and was like, hey, do you want to be on my friend's podcast? He can't talk, so he's sending me to do it. They were all over it. They were just immediately, oh, yeah, absolutely. Anything that gets us, recognized and have some more...
Exactly.
Yeah. They were totally cool with it and excited. I felt a little awkward when I walked up and had to explain that it wasn't my podcast.
Right.
Because they all thought that it was.
Oh.
So when I was like, oh, no, my friend's over there signing books and he has no voice, they're like, oh, so you haven't done this before? And I'm like, I was on one, but I haven't actually recorded them for him.
You'll get more and more used to it as time goes on. Speaking of not having a voice, man, it was hell participating in a signing without a voice. When people came up to me and talked to me, I felt that they couldn't hear what I was saying back to them. They were just kind of staring at me strangely, like, you sound like a frog, you don't sound like a human. And so, I think it probably would have went better had I been able to actually speak, but...
Yeah, not to mention the fact that they had music and a movie and people walking around. So there was a lot of background noise.
Right. It's going to happen, though.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes at cons, you lose your voice, or you lose your voice right before these, and I do a lot of conventions, I do a lot of this stuff, so I was bound to lose it sooner or later. One of my best friends in the comic industry, Beth, who does a fantastic comic called Out for Souls and Cookies. She's been on the podcast before. She was on our Christmas episode. Out for Souls and Cookies is a comic that's about 2 dogs who are actually demons who have come to Earth as Cocker Spaniels because there's no retirement plan in hell.
Oh my god.
And they know that if they're Cocker Spaniels, they can go around collecting souls lazily, but for the most part, just get cookies.
Sounds awesome.
So the title of the book is Out for Souls and Cookies. I love it. I actually make an appearance in issue number 4.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a guy who's selling his soul to the devil. I'm Adam Watson, selling his soul to the devil at Emerald City Comic Con, if I remember right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So when I first met her, for the first time at Stumptown Comics Fest. I'm going to say 2008, 2009, something like that. And I went walking up to her table. I'm like, Out for Souls and Cookies, what is that? And she's trying to give me the pitch. And she just had zero voice, and she's trying so hard to make the pitch. And I was just like, please, just quit talking. I'm going to buy this. Just quit talking. And it wasn't that I couldn't stand to hear her talk. It's that I couldn't stand that she was hurting her vocal cords that bad to try to talk to me.
Right.
So I'm just like, you've sold me. I want to buy it. It looks cute. But I went home, read it, and then, I bought every issue since then. And yeah, Beth's a great creator. So I want to have her on the podcast again at some point.
That sounds great. I'll have to check that one out.
And she's one of the few comic creators I know who have done a Christmas issue.
Really?
Yep. Yeah.
Is it not a common thing, or?
There are a lot of Christmas issues that exist in comics, and it seemed like last year that the trend was starting to kind of catch on again. I actually saw a lot of Christmas issues being put out by Image. I don't know how many they did in total, but I bought Curse Words Holiday Special, which I never read Curse Words before, and I feel like I should probably read more of the series to better understand the holiday special. But they did that. The Wicked and the Divine had a holiday special. Last year, Hellboy had a Christmas special that was Krampus Nacht, I think is what it was called. There was going to be a Spawn holiday special, but that got canceled for some reason, which was really too bad because the artwork actually looked really kick-ass. And
really?
It had Spawn taking on Krampus. And I enjoy the occasional Spawn now and again. It's nothing that I buy with any regularity or anything like that, but I love the HBO series. And, a special one-shot like that I was going to buy, but didn't come out. Klaus, I'm not sure how you're supposed to say it, but it's Grant Morrison's origin story of Santa Claus, special for that last year. So, there were a lot more in DC. They did a holiday special. there are a lot more holiday specials that came out last year than what have been for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I would consider it a wholly common thing anymore. It's like in the 80s and 90s it was. Every comic company came out with a Christmas special. Or, catch-all term of holiday special.
Right.
I'm coming out with one this year in 2018.
Which I'm looking forward to. From what I've been told about it.
I've actually written 2 holiday specials, but this one will for sure be seen because it's only going to be 8 pages in total. And the script is almost finished. Patrick's been waiting on it. So as soon as I finish it, then I'm going to be sending over to him. He's a very fast artist, so I don't think we'll have any problem whatsoever running it during Christmas. And it'll be free for people to read because it's a webcomic.
This is the one you were telling me about that was originally pitched with that starting. Like, that was the first thing that you guys came up with, right?
Yes, and we are talking about Little Lame Mime and the Mini Slingers. I have no problem saying that.
Okay.
Cool. I think I mentioned it on the podcast before. I do believe that around Christmas last year I actually talked about this.
Uh-huh.
So yes, it's Little Lame Mime and the Mini Slingers. So I had been wanting to do a Christmas story that incorporated all the Darkslinger characters. And I had actually thought for a while about doing one that had David B. Scrooge from A Christmas Carol because he can already see ghosts. And I thought it might be kind of funny. And I might still do that at some point in time.
Yeah. Though
I could make it a little bit goofier and incorporate that in next year as the Little Lame Mime and the Mini Slingers.
Yeah.
Christmas special, Because that one fits a little bit better with the cartoony element and it's still basically the same characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, we're working on that first. I want to make sure that that gets done prior to any of the work that'll come out during the summertime.
Right.
For Little Lame Mime and the Mini Slingers, just because, it's what I envision the series to start with. And even if I run things before that, as I definitely will, since the first pinup from that will be coming out this week. It's a Mother's Day special. So, I view it as very important to get that done. Then I actually do have a Chronicles von Helsing holiday special that's written out.
Ooh.
Yeah. I don't know when I'll be doing that. It's written out. It's not drawn.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I'm going to go with one of the main artists that have already been in Chronicles von Helsing or someone brand new for this because I want it to have a legit Yuletide feel to this story. So I might find somebody that draws a little bit more in that sort of styling,
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Make it a little less standard comic art and a little bit more soft edge Christmas style.
Yeah.
Anyway. We derailed from Free Comic Book Day.
A little bit, yeah.
So overall, I thought it went pretty good. I picked up a few Free Comic Book Day issues. I can't say how they were yet because I haven't read them. But the kids got some things, and they all seemed to enjoy them well enough. Looks like there was a pretty good offering for kids.
Yeah.
Viz had a Pokemon comic out, and there was a SpongeBob comic, and Simpsons, and things like that,
I think about 3/4 of the books that were left were all the kids' books.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just that they really over-ordered on the kids' stuff, which would make sense because a lot of comic shops continue to give those out to kids even after Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
Or if it might be that not as many people brought kids to the signing this year. I'm not sure. I didn't see as many children there as I did in previous years, but we also didn't get there until about 2:45. I signed at 3.
Right.
And so it's totally possible that the glut of kids were just there before we were.
That makes sense to me. I mean, Cosmic Monkey is definitely one of the more kid-friendly comic shops.
Yeah, pretty much all of them are pretty kid-friendly these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean, more so the fact that they have a whole specific section upstairs for kids.
Right, and there are actually things in there that kids can afford.
Right.
So one of the things that's kind of aggravating to me when I go into Things from Another World, for instance, is they have billions and billions of toys there. They have way more toys than comics, it seems.
Yeah.
But they're all in the $50 range.
Right.
And then their kids section is in, we're talking about the Milwaukee location, of course.
Yeah.
The kids section is in that weird little wing that's the window area.
The one little tiny area.
Yeah, and kids wouldn't even know that section was over there unless they specifically asked.
Right.
And there's not really anything for kids in that section besides 12 comics.
That's more what I meant about
it being
more of a kid-friendly
place. Yeah. He is they cater to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, like, no matter what you're into, you're going to find it there.
Right.
But there are a lot of comic shops that have taken a lot of strides to be friendlier to anyone who would walk in versus the way it was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, you didn't need kid comics, per se. You just need all ages material. But that was something that was a lot different about then versus now, too. Because the superhero stuff was all ages back then.
That's a good point.
You know, there was things that bordered on risque in Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah.
But not so much that I wouldn't give my kids any of the Chris Claremont stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just a little bit of a difference in what the industry has become versus what it was.
Very understandable.
Yeah. I actually want to start producing a bit more kid-friendly material. But at the same time, I'm not going to quit doing the horror and adult-themed stuff.
But, I mean, you already got the mini-slingers going. I don't know if that's supposed to be directly something that kids are able to read, or if it's just stylized that way.
No, they can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, you're on a good start.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even really have to stop doing what you're doing. You're just adding more.
The Little A Mime and the Mini Slingers is completely all ages friendly.
Okay.
If you know the characters from reading their adult versions, then you'll get more out of it, but you don't need to, because I'm basically approaching that comic the way Sunday comic strips are done.
Yeah.
And that's the way I think about it. But, you know, the vast majority of my titles are adult.
Yeah.
And when I invented El Bovine Muerte, I actually thought it was going to be my first all-ages book. And in ways it still is. But there are things in there parents wouldn't approve of, like smoking, for instance.
Yeah.
And then just, you know, kind of the concept. It's hard for adults to grasp.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's hard for children to grasp too. Though who knows, maybe kids have an easier time grasping it than adults because they can just let go and, you know, go with it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's about an industrialist mime who invents who invents a cow that creates the world's most perfect cheese that's so good that one bite wipes your mind clean and leaves you susceptible to brainwashing. When I tell adults that, their eyes just kind of roll back in their heads. They can't figure out what I'm talking about. Maybe kids can a little bit easier. I don't know.
I personally was able to grasp it, but I mean, I had already been filled in before reading it.
Right.
So it was a little easier for me.
You just got to understand going into it that it's weird.
Yeah.
So
well, and I guess that works because I have
Right.
a weird sense of humor. So, like I said, I mean, I was able to comprehend it and get it, and I was laughing the whole time.
Oh, good.
Just through the 2 issues that I got from you. But
yeah, I kind of think of El Bovine Muerte like my... have you ever seen the movie Rubber?
yeah.
Okay, you know how in the very beginning of it, the guy jumps out of the truck and he's like, this is an homage to nothing, or no reason.
Right.
That's what EBM is to me. Things that are done in it, just completely no reason. Doesn't matter. It's just because I decided to do it, you know?
See, and that's what makes it great, though.
Why does the popper all of a sudden appear in the half issue? Chasing Leigh Myman is what is clearly a thinly veiled parody of Batman. No reason.
And like I said the other day, that's probably one of my favorite things about that one.
Right?
Like, it just instantly, as soon as I saw the popper, I was laughing about it. Still haven't read the popper yet, but it made me laugh that you incorporated that in there. That's why I've held off on it.
The popper version 2.0 will be a lot better than the rough cut. The rough cut was the first comic I ever wrote and suffered because of it. You know? Whatever your first work is rarely something you're proud of.
Right.
So, but yeah, in addition to those, so I do have several older audiences, you know, like teen and up, and some that are straight up mature coming out in 2018, 2019. But I have been working on a script for an all-ages monster comic as well. And I'm not talking about the one I'm doing with you.
No,
It's
I'm just
actually something
excited
completely
as soon
different.
as you say monsters, like, I'm a monster sucker.
When I say all ages, I mean all ages. I think that someone who's 47 would get just as much enjoyment out of this as someone who's 7.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. This particular title I'm talking about, I can't mention the name of or anything like that yet. And just say, it is not a comedy. It is all ages, but it's not a comedic book.
Yeah.
So I don't think that everything all ages should be SpongeBob SquarePants or Adventure Time.
Right.
This definitely is not. This is more... It has a serious tone like the majority of my writing does.
Yeah.
But it is all ages because the content in it doesn't need to not be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that totally makes sense. It's like, I mean, if you think about it, nowadays cartoons are just stupid and funny because they think it's, what it has to be.
The vast majority.
But, I mean, growing up, I watched cartoons that were completely serious, but still aimed at kids. Like, it doesn't have to be stupid funny.
Right. And I don't think all of them are. Voltron, the new Netflix show.
Yeah, I haven't watched that
It's
one
got
yet.
its stupid moments, and it's got a lot of humor in it. But overall, there's a lot of seriousness to it. The new Nickelodeon Ninja Turtles, I resisted watching for quite a while. But when I watched it, I actually thought it was really good. I think I resisted it just because I like the 4Kids one so much.
Yeah.
But then I watched that, and I don't think it's as good as the 4Kids one. But I still thought it was really good.
My input on that one is that I watched it the day it aired. As Adam knows, I am a sucker for anything Ninja Turtles.
Right.
And I asked for the action figures for my birthday, and my mom actually went out and bought all of the turtles, and I think it was just the 4 turtles in maybe April.
Okay.
From Toys R Us, she convinced them to give them to her like 2 days before the release date.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just because they were going to be released like within the week of my birthday.
Right.
And they had them already in the back.
Oh, okay.
So I went into it expecting it was going to be super cool and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sat down and watched it, and my girlfriend turned to me at the time, and she was like, "You can't really like this, really. Like, it's stupid. It doesn't make any sense." And I was like, you know what? It's enjoyable. Like, I liked it. And
I actually hate it when people are like that just
Yeah.
because I'll enjoy what I want to enjoy.
Exactly. I think she was only getting onto it because she's not open to change.
Right.
This is my ex now. But my son enjoys it. I haven't shown him a lot of the later episodes where it got a little darker because he is very sensitive.
Right.
But the crossover episodes with the 80s Turtles, he watches those all the time.
So, when we went out to get something to eat after Rose City this last year,
Yeah.
some of my comic creator friends were bitching about various things in all these Marvel and DC movies, right? And I was like, do you guys not realize how good we have it?
Yeah.
What do you mean? When we were kids, we had the Christopher Reeves Batman movie, or Superman movies, the Tim Burton Batman movies, which 2 of were good, 2 of were arguably not. Although I did like Batman Forever as a kid.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. There was a really shitty version of Vampirella made in 1997.
Yeah.
And then there were a few TV shows, like Sam and Max was this comic that was indie and underground, and they cussed in and all this stuff, and then suddenly it was this awesome Fox cartoon. The Tick was the same exact thing. Tick said shit in his comic, all this stuff. Then it got changed, and not changed that drastically though, because he just cussed once in a while in the comic, but it was this awesome cartoon. And the X-Men, Spider-Man, those were cartoons, but sure, you could see cartoon versions, but you couldn't go to a theater and watch stuff like that, And so now it's like everywhere you look, all TV and all movies and everything are based off comics in some way. Even things have come out throughout the years that people don't even realize are based on comics, like Road to Perdition.
Yeah.
And A History of Violence, because not all of it's superhero stuff. It's important to remember that. I was like, you guys have the right to bitch about it now because of how much of it comes out.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but you like everything. Well, number one, I don't like everything. But number two, I do like a lot of it that other people don't.
Right.
Like when I was 15, something like that, Generation X was my favorite comic, right?
Yeah.
It was announced they were making a Generation X telefilm. And that's actually the first live-action X-Men movie.
Really?
Yep. And it was goofy. It's like anything with Jubilee is going to be goofy.
Yeah.
I like Jubilee, but my normal co-host to this podcast, Robert, as our audience probably is well aware at this point, hates Jubilee. Every time the X-Men are brought up, he mentions how bad he hates Jubilee. But he had Jubilee and Skin, I think, were the main two in it. And, the guy who played Max Headroom,
yeah,
he was the bad guy in it.
Oh my god!
And it's goofy, and you can tell it's a made-for-TV movie from the 90s. But I actually liked it when I was 15, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, there's a movie based off this. And it's not exactly like the Generation X comic, but who cares?
Right.
It's enjoyable, and I watched that on YouTube a few weeks ago. I still liked it. I don't care if anyone else likes it. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
So, they were going on about, like, Batman The Dark Knight Rises.
Right.
About how bad it was. I was like, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You did, but Batman did this, and Batman did that, and Batman did that. Well, okay, I don't read Batman comics as much as they do.
Yeah.
I've read plenty of Batman comics, but I will straight up admit I pretty much only read the critically acclaimed Batman stories.
Right.
I'm not going to read the other 10,000 issues in Batman. I'm just going to wait till somebody's like, oh my god, this Batman story is fantastic, and that's one I'm going to go read.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much Batman to read all of it. So, they've read a lot more Batman than I do. So maybe they got a lot more ground to stand on than I do. But just as a movie on something based off Batman, I loved it.
Yeah.
Could have they got someone better for Catwoman? Yeah. Did she do a horrid job? No. She was okay. She wasn't bad. Is it weird, like, Batman leaves Gotham in the end? Sure. But that's what happened in that story.
Yeah.
So just take the 3 movies as what they are.
Exactly.
Now, does that mean I don't think that you should have the right to bitch about it if you don't like it? No. But don't tell me that I shouldn't like it, which is what too many of my friends do. Like, you're stupid for liking that. You shouldn't like that. How dare you like that? I can like it if I want to. And you can like the Ninja Turtles cartoon if you like to.
Exactly.
And if somebody wants to make fun of you for it, that's fine. You make fun of somebody for whatever.
Yeah.
But I hate it when, like, my friends try to change my opinion on it. Like,
Yeah.
don't you see why this is stupid? Well, sure I do. I'm not an idiot. I get it. It's stupid. Like, in the Generation X telefilm, Skin is, like, astral projecting himself into his girlfriend's dream, and in her dream, like, he could go there and do whatever he wants with her, like, make out, have sex, whatever.
Yeah.
What are they doing? They're doing the La Bamba? Like, that's stupid. Of course it is. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's not going to ruin the whole movie for me, Anyway, that's just a little bit of a rant side, but that's okay, because I rant occasionally.
I think we're detouring so much.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, really and truly, there's not a whole lot of ground cover about Free Comic Book Day, beyond and besides the interviews we did.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was fun. I didn't have a voice. I wasn't able to really talk to people. Kind of defeats some of the purpose of doing a signing. I know that there is kind of a Free Comic Book Day version 2.0 that happens in October that's called the Comics Halloween Fest or something like that.
Huh.
And I'm going to see if I might be able to get a signing set up somewhere for that, too.
Nice.
Maybe Cosmic Monkey, maybe, somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know if they host people for that or not. I will have to figure out what shops host people and which don't. I'd really like to do that. My stuff fits in well with Halloween, of course.
Exactly.
And so I've actually been wanting to do a little Chronicles Von Helsing giveaway mini comic for Halloween.
That'd be cool.
For quite some time. So I don't know when you came into comics, like what was being published. But when I came in, Wizard and Hero were really big things.
Right.
Do you remember those magazines? Yeah. Okay. And when I was a kid, you couldn't buy an issue of either of those without it being packaged with either an ash can comic or a trading card or a poster.
Yep.
Right? And so I personally have a deep love for that kind of promotional material.
Yeah.
And I love the send away issues, like the half issues. I tried out so many series like that. But, buying Wizard come with, like, one of my favorites of all time was a little Max mini comic that it came with, because I'm a huge fan of the Max. And I was able to try out so many series like that. So one of the things I've been wanting to do for a while is do a Chronicles Von Helsing mini comic that I don't know if it'd fit better in the Halloween Fest or figuring out a different way to promo it.
Right.
Unfortunately, Wizard doesn't exist anymore, so that's not an option.
Yeah.
But, something I've been thinking of for quite a while.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, I know, at least for a while, I don't know if he still does it or not, but for a while, Jeff Smith would take, I think they were 6-page snippets from various Bone issues, repackage them as a Halloween giveaway and sell them in bundles of 25.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, I've never actually seen any of them, but I've seen them online.
Right.
So I know they exist,
Yeah.
But I like the idea of having mini comics.
Yeah, no, that's definitely cool.
And Chronicles Von Helsing is definitely not okay to be putting in kids' backs.
Yeah.
So I don't want it in that regard.
Right.
I want it to be something more like the Wizard one is. But I feel, though, if it were at the Halloween fest, that comic retailers are savvy enough to know what has what rating on it. That it's okay to go to kids or not.
Well, and maybe if it's a promotional thing, you could even put a little warning on it or something.
Yes.
I mean, most of your books have warnings on the back, don't they?
Or on the front.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's simple enough that if they picked it up and looked at it, they'd know not to stick it in there.
Yeah. So, while we're on the topic of all ages things and horror things, do you want to talk at all about...
I would not mind that. I think that'd be cool. Like, I'm
Right.
not secretive about it. I've told enough people at work.
I
and
didn't
friends
figure
and stuff.
secret about it because there's been so many posts on Facebook recently, so...
Yeah, that's just because I'm a dork and I like to post everything that I do.
Hey, that's not a problem. As long as you remember when we're actually doing the comic pages themselves.
Oh yeah,
Don't
no,
post
that's completely different. No, I figure right now
I'm handy with that though. If you're ever not sure if you should post something or not, you can just send me a message and ask.
Yeah, see, and I figured you haven't said, "Hey, don't post that."
Right.
Because most of what I'm doing right now is just like weird sketches.
What
and
you're
paintings
doing
and
right
shit.
now can gear people up for
Yeah.
it. And I actually want, while we're on the topic, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if I say this on the podcast or not, I want to get a picture of the one image you've done so that I can put it on the Darkslinger
Okay.
Instagram to tease this upcoming series.
That'd be cool. And while we're on the topic, my brother's doing different paintings and stuff on his computer.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to do a dark portrait for me.
Okay.
That I thought would be cool to either use as a pinup or even like a back cover on like a trade or something like that.
All right. I'm pretty good about
Yeah.
figuring out where that kind of stuff needs to
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing like
I
too
also am a
crazy,
big
but-
fan of doing trading cards to promote things.
Yeah.
And so stuff like that comes in handy for trading card images as well.
Yeah, he does some really bizarre stuff, and he came up with
Okay.
a pretty goofy little slogan to throw on the bottom of it that I was just like, okay, that's awesome. Like, it
Okay,
needs
so
to be
go
on
ahead and tell people what this series is that you're going to be doing with Darkslinger.
All right.
This will actually make you, even though you're an up-and-coming creator,
Yeah.
this will make you the first Darkslinger creator to be featured on this podcast besides me.
Really?
Yeah, all the other people who have been interviewed that are comic creators are not people who have worked for Darkslinger.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, I feel honored. Okay, so basically, it's Inspiratu, the motivational vampire. And he's just this goofy Nosferatu ripoff that he does motivational speeches and pep talks to try and better people's lives. And it either goes great or it goes completely wrong. And I'm a terrible writer, so I mean, I have little ideas and stuff that I'm pitching to Adam, but he's going to be writing it.
Yep. And what we're going to do to kick the whole thing off is we're going to do a short El Bovine Muerte story that is the first thing that you're going to be penciling.
Which I'm excited for.
I bet. Nervous though too at all?
I've been practicing at home, and actually what I was working on tonight is a small painting for you as just as a gift for everything that you've been doing, but
thank you.
Also as a practice to get into the style, just kind of like looking at the character and just doing my own thing with it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing a short little story that we'll go ahead and spoil a little bit. That will have Lay Mime hiring Inspiratu to come in and give a motivational speech to his troops. So, story-wise, this will fit in somewhere around the beginning of issue number 1 of El Bovine Muerte. Because we're going to be working with the Lay Mime that does not have the metallic arm yet for this one. And this is going to be when his facility had not been bombed by the general yet. So, I would say, just for shits and giggles, that it's in that big 2-year gap that's randomly there in El Bovine Muerte when Muerte's hooked up to the Clockwork Orange machine.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's 2 years later and she's a full-grown cow.
I love that.
Yeah, Maya and I were talking on the Kids Review Comics podcast. She reviewed El Bovine Muerte issue number 1. She was saying, what happens in that 2 years? I was like, I don't know. Maybe everything, maybe nothing. Probably nothing interesting, though. So, here we go. Here's one of the things that happened in that 2 years.
That's awesome. It's definitely something that I was thinking about when I was reading it the other day. I was like, what actually would happen? Like, does he literally just sit there doing nothing? Like, absolutely nothing's going on.
Well, I had been thinking about that after she mentioned it, and I was like, I didn't think anyone was actually going to wonder that. So,
That's awesome.
Here we go. Here's one of the things that happened. So, Lei Mime was just gearing his troops up, and,
Yeah.
why he's got so many troops when he didn't seem to realize that he was going to get attacked, I don't know, but he's got his own private little army. That's
exactly.
why. And what the hell did Lei Mime do to earn so much money?
Right.
I don't know.
I was actually gonna ask you about that the other day. I was like,
ask me all you want. I don't know the answer.
I was just like, where the hell did that come from? He's a mime, and he just magically has this big ass group of scientists working on a cow.
Right.
Where did that come from? Did it ever have a story behind it, or
Well, no.
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 It just starts up that
No.
way, and it's expected
Okay.
that you'll just assume.
So I'll tell you this part, and then we're probably done for tonight.
Yeah.
So, and this story has been told on the podcast before, so, excuse me for telling again, but Levon hasn't heard it yet. With El Bovine Muerte, I had only been writing serious stuff. Everything I had written up at that point was completely serious. Ghost Assassin, The Pauper, the early versions of Principalities.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And one day we were going to be heading out to Spokane for a Comic-Con. Before Emily had taken our kids over to her parents for the weekend, I was watching Nacho Libre with them, which at the time was their favorite movie.
Right.
And whenever I watch that movie, the song Jack Black sings, where he's going on about Nacho, always gets completely stuck in my head.
Yeah.
So I'm in the shower as she's taking the kids over, and I'm singing that quite loud because I'm the only one in the house. And Nacho specifically gets stuck in my head. I'm like, Nacho cheese. Cheese is so great that it wipes your mind. And then this whole thing came into play that's like, you thought you were creating the perfect cheese, but instead you created me. Well, who could create the perfect cheese? Well, that'd have to be a cow, right?
Yeah.
But in order for a cow to create the perfect cheese, and by the way, that line did end up finally being used in issue number 3. I had that line in my head forever. And finally I had a chance to have Muerte charge at Lei Mime in issue number 3, and so I had her use the line. So this whole thing came into my head that a cow would be needed because cows create dairy. So that makes sense, right?
Right.
And I was like, okay, this cow needs to talk, but I don't want to just do yet another anthropomorphic animal that talks. And I knew that if it was creating the perfect cheese, this cow had to be a chimera.
Right.
So she couldn't just be a cow. She had to have been created in a facility. So that brought in the facility. The facility would have had her hooked up to a tank that were these DNA vats.
Right.
No matter how unrealistic that is, I'm not using real science here.
Yeah.
So the DNA vats would have, like a human in them, a horse, a cow, goat, whatever, right? Because, anything that's capable of producing milk could go into the perfect cheese, right? So I want her to be able to talk. And at first, I thought, okay, maybe she talks because she's a chimera that has human in her, right?
Yeah.
Which certainly would make her more intelligent. But then this image of Muerte being sad popped into my head. I knew her name was Muerte right from the get-go.
Right.
The moment she popped into my head, her name was Muerte, because if her cheese was so good that it wiped people's minds, she was the death cow. Muerte means death.
Right.
So her name was Muerte. So the whole thing is that I had this image of her being very sad in my head because she was never a bad guy. She never was in my head whatsoever, despite her name. So she was very sad. She needed a friend. Well, enter in Bethany, who was a psychic that could talk to her. So when Bethany is around, Muerte can talk because she's being psychically amplified by Bethany.
Right.
So, in any case, this whole thing with Bethany pops in. I know this little redheaded girl, and she's trapped in this facility too, right? But Muerte wasn't born in this facility. I don't know if Bethany was. I didn't know that at that time. But I knew Muerte wasn't.
Right.
She's born somewhere else. She's born because somebody needed to create the perfect cheese. They created her. And I knew her milk came out as cheese, and it never came out as milk, which is really weird and gross. And, and so I was like, who created her? So I came up with the general, being the guy who ran the facility. I knew that I wanted a doctor to be responsible for actual creation, and that his name would just be the doctor. I knew that. I knew that I wanted zombie Jehovah's Witnesses to randomly stumble in to the dairy freeze that was called the Not Area 51 Diner that the facility she was being held in was under. Why did I want zombie Jehovah's Witnesses to ramble in? I got no fucking clue. But it was just there. And I was like, okay, these guys come in and one of them just says brains and the other one wants to teach you about the evils of gambling. So just like when Jehovah's Witnesses that aren't zombies knock on your doors. That's what they say too.
Right.
One of them is always standing there behind the other one going brains. You know, it makes sense, right? So anyway, I had all that in place. The story did not click. There was something totally missing from it. Could not for the life of me think who the hell created this cow, right?
Yeah.
And then one day I'm sitting there and I'm working on Ghost Assassin, and I get this image in my head of this mime that's sitting there with his fingers steepled, and he's looking at the readers maniacally, and there's something weird about him. He can break the fourth wall. He's strange. At first, in my head, I almost related him to the Joker, but then I was like, but he's really not like the Joker at all, except for the whole thing where, you know, he's a mime all the time, and the Joker's a clown all the time. That's really the only similarities. I knew he had a fleur-de-lis right away. That was right in my head in his image. Fleur-de-lis on the beret, fleur-de-lis on his chest. And, you know, he would look standardly like a normal mime would, but he'd have different face paintings because mimes standardly have the little tips above and below their eyes.
Right.
Whereas he'd have them on the sides of his cheeks. I knew all that. And I knew that he would smoke cigarettes that were in long filters. So Nick is actually the artist responsible, who was the first artist on Bovine Muerte before Paul took over. Nick is actually responsible for making it filtered cigarettes put in the long filter. That was something he did, not something I did.
Yeah.
Originally, the image in my head, he wore combat boots. Since then, it's been drawn as more like normal mime shoes, which is fine.
Right.
But yeah, he was supposed to wear combat boots in the beginning. And, you know, he just popped in my head fully formed like that. I have no idea where the hell he came from.
That's crazy.
I was not watching anything on mimes. I was not listening to anything that was talking about mimes. I don't think I've ever read a comic that had a mime in it. But whatever the case, well, okay, I had read The Boys, which has a scene with a mime in it, but that what I had invented lay mime before that. So whatever the case, I don't know where he came from. I don't know why I created him, but wine glass and cigarette in hand, he popped into my head fully formed, and he hasn't changed much since then.
That's awesome.
Although I did think from the beginning that he would eventually get a metal arm, and not really for any reason at all. So, like, you know, at the end of issue number 1, he gets shot in the shoulder, and when you see him again, he's got this metal arm in place from being shot in the shoulder. And as Ben's reading the script, he's like, that's not how gunshot wounds work. If he got shot in the shoulder, he'd get surgery, and, you know, maybe he'd lose some of the use of his arm, but it would heal.
Right.
Because of where the shot was. I was like, I know that. Come on, I grew up out in the country. I've seen gunshot wounds. And he's like, well, why does he have a metal arm then? I don't know. He just does. Just does. Just go with it.
Doesn't need logic to it.
I always knew that at some point he'd get the metal arm, and I always knew that we would do stories that took place before or just completely out of continuity where he'd be drawn standardly like regular mime without the metal arm. So I don't know if at some point in time I'll reveal that the metal arm can come off. I don't know. I got no idea on any of that. All I know is at the moment, the standard lay mime has a metal arm.
It's not even really a metal arm. It's just like a sleeve that looks like it's metal.
Maybe. But I'm pretty sure it is a metal arm. And, you know, he's got that, and I don't know why. And I know that when I give the artists the choice, they almost always draw the version without the metal arm.
Right.
I do know that. And I don't know why that is either. Maybe you can tell me.
Maybe it's simpler. I haven't tried drawing metal arms, so.
Yeah, it's fair. It is simpler. It is simpler. But yeah, I have no idea where he came from. That is as much of the origin as I know. It's just something that just popped into my head.
That's awesome, though. I love how, like, just random thoughts like that can come up.
Yeah. I would say most of my books have came from random thoughts.
Honestly, I think I could say the same with anything that I came up with.
There has been work that I've done that's very much based out of my own life.
Right.
Some of which turned out good and some of which turned out to be stuff I will never show.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I think most of it's just random ideas. And Bovine Muerte is my dumping ground for any random idea.
That's awesome.
And who knows, maybe Little Lame Mime and the Mini Slingers will be too. Because, it's kind of Bovine Muerte version 2.0 in a lot of ways.
Well, and I mean, that could work too with the more kid-friendly stuff. If you just get some random idea that you're like, oh, it doesn't really fit in with Lame Mime.
Right.
But it could if Lame Mime is a kid.
Right.
Like,
well, see, one of the problems that I have with EBN is Lame Mime inserts himself into the story so badly that it's hard to not write him into scenes where he doesn't belong.
right.
And so I've been thinking for a long time that I should do another comic that had Lame Mime.
Yeah.
Because if he can have more of the spotlight, he'll quit bothering me as badly to be in the spotlight all the time in EBM.
Right.
So, that works in that regard too.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand that.
So, anyway, I think we've rambled on for long enough
Definitely.
for tonight's podcast. So, till next week, I'm Adam Watson.
I'm Levon Baker.
Thank you for listening.